Thanks for making, I'd like to say thanks for making time, joining us this morning. My name is Clement and I'll be your host. Welcome to today's Founders Conversation. My name is Clement Orwa, the Community Director, and I serve to make sure that our founders access opportunities that drive business growth and sustainability. Whether it's connecting founders to the right resources, markets, or mentors, we are here to support your journey. Today, we are on our second episode of corporate governance. My good friend, Wakili Austin, is around. Now, I just want to make sure that you understand something. Good corporate governance is the backbone of sustainable business growth, ensuring that your enterprise is well structured, compliant, and ready for expansion. Now, when you are dealing with governance, corporate governance, you will definitely need a qualified lawyer. You will definitely need a person with this kind of expertise. With no further ado, kindly join me in welcoming one of the greatest experts in this profession, Mr. Austin Atandi. Welcome, Austin. Austin?
Thank you, Clement. I'm just almost falling off my seat here.
Do not fall off your seat. Do not.
Thank you for that. I'm honored to know I'm one of the greatest. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Quite honored, actually, that I am undertaking this series where I meet SME owners. And what a topic, because corporate governance is our everyday life. Excuse me. Corporate governance is our everyday life. So today we look at the impact of corporate governance on the lives of SMEs. What does it mean when you have a good corporate governance structure? And what is its impact on the decision making or on the decisions you make as an SME? So generally, we are going to look at corporate governance at a glance, the structures that exist under corporate governance, and the impact of decisions made through proper corporate governance or through faulty or lack of corporate governance in SMEs. Santeni sana, my name is Austin Atandi. I'm an advocate of the High Court, a practitioner in commercial and corporate law. I boast over 10 years experience in practice. In fact, I think as a lawyer, I'm about 15. And I work for a law firm by the name Ondaba and Partners Advocates. We are based in Nairobi, Kilimani, with an office in Kisii and Oloitoktok. And we are grateful to be here this morning. Without wasting much time, let's dive into the introduction of this session. So SMEs generally, and I believe most of us here are in one way or the other involved in the management, the running, the ownership, the directorship of an SME. A small, a micro, a medium, whatever it is, an enterprise that you run, whatever size it is, they all play a very crucial role worldwide. And the reason I say this is because it is the small bits that build up to the bigger part. It's the small chunks of whatever you do. It is you who is selling 5, 10 pieces of mobile phones a day, or 5, 10 pieces of replaceable batteries, or delivering plumbing service, or delivering IT services somewhere. It is you who then builds up to the larger economic wheel and its effective turning. Because if it's just an economic wheel and it's not turning, then it's not, we're all stuck. But if it's turning, then it's churning out something. And through your effort as an SME owner, that wheel becomes the economy. So you play your part, I play my part. Clement plays his part in very little ways, very subtle ways. That matatu driver, that matatu owner, that conductor, makanga, we all play a very minute part, but it all adds up to the greater picture of what we have as the economy in this country. And we know the economy in this country, or the economy of this state known as Kenya, is one of the best economies we have across Africa, about top 5 or top 7 in terms of GDP. What does that mean? That means our growth, our production per person and collectively has a huge impact in Africa. So going back now to SMEs, for you then to play your role effectively as an SME, you must have a governing structure. Last week we looked at the introduction. We just did a basic introduction to governance structures. And these structures, we were saying, are the elements or the means through which the SME owners are enabled to effectively make decisions and therefore enable growth of their enterprises. So today we want to look at the actual decision making. How does it play into risk management? How does it play into accountability? And then how does it play into the ultimate growth of your SME, that eventually by the end of the year, you're reporting positive numbers and you're reporting growth, not just in numbers, but in your social impact, wherever you're based, in the impact to your people as staff, as employees, as directors, to the impact of your personal life as the owner of the business. Forget about the financial. Yes, it might be putting money into your bank account, but what is your mental state? Are you happy with what you're doing? So corporate governance plays a huge role in all that. So the session today is basically going to look at all that. So SMEs can be, through proper structures, then SMEs make informed choices. And through that, they optimize the operations and the long-term sustainability. You don't want your business to die on year 3, like many startups do, I'm sorry to say. And I have dealt with startups. I've advised a wide range of startups for the last 10 years. And there's that saying that if you survive year 3, and if you survive year 5, and ultimately survive year 7, then you are on the path to sustainability. Thank you, Clement, for showcasing the slides. So we can move on now to the next slide. So generally, there are very broad-based types of governance structures. There's a formal governance board structure and there's the advisory board structure. Now, before I talk about these formal governance structures, I want to take you back to Company Law 101. When you incorporate your business, whatever state you incorporate it in, whether a business name, unlimited by shares, unlimited by guarantee, an NGO, whatever it is incorporated as a limited liability partnership, there are several tiers that come up. So these tiers or levels dictate how this business will be managed. Now, in no particular order, let's look at these tiers. So tier 1 is the ownership level. Now, you, perhaps alone or with a group of others, could decide to incorporate, and for this purpose, let's use unlimited by shares as an example, could decide to incorporate a company. And nowadays, you know, in this country, you can incorporate the law and the Companies Act 2015 has given us opportunity where we can incorporate a company as an individual. So just I, as Austin Atandi, can go in and register a limited company and start trading, get a Kenya Revenue Authority PIN, and set up a bank account and start trading. But then at that level of trading as X Limited, I am playing various levels of, or I'm playing various tiers of structure or of governance of that small business that I've incorporated that I may not be able to see it, but they're actually at play. So that's what I want us to look at. Number one, there's the ownership. So I've incorporated it. I've probably used a basic nominal value of 100,000 shillings of 1,000 shares divided into 100 shillings, which I know we all understand. If we don't, we can have this in the Q&A later. I can explain what that is. So you've used a nominal capital of 100,000. You've incorporated your business. You have 1,000 shares, and you've allocated yourself the entire 1,000 shares. So you are basically the sole owner of this limited company. Now, that is tier 1 of corporate governance. You are the owner. You are the owner of that business. Now, tier 2 is you have appointed yourself automatically because you are the shareholder. You have the opportunity to appoint directors onto the board. Now, what you then do is you appoint whoever it is you want to appoint. People appoint their mothers, their fathers. Some appoint external independent parties to come in as directors. So what you're doing is you are creating a second tier of corporate governance. This tier is called the advisory tier. So it's a board of directors where they are there to advise the business on a very broader scale on its sustainability. Then tier 3, because you're a busy person, you've gone on and hired a CEO or a manager or a general manager or whatever it is you've hired to run the business on a day-to-day. Now, that is another level of corporate governance. And then we have another tier called the management or the staff. So you have the CEO, he is the head of the management, but then you have the people who actually deliver the work. That is the employee, the staff. That is also another level of corporate governance. So these are the structures. These structures, perhaps we will discover more as we go along, but I want to look at these 4. And I want to look at this 4 because each organization at one point or the other finds itself in need of these 4 structures. Now, what happens is we mix them up, and forgive me because I may not necessarily go according to my presentation today, but what happens is we mix them up. So you have you as the shareholder, then you are the only director of the company, and you are the CEO because you're the one signing checks and paying off people and paying yourself. And you're the one running around delivering that IT service or delivering goods to your customers. So then how do you separate the levels of governance? Because without a separation, just like we have separation of powers in government, then there is bound to be an overlap of functions, a conflict of interests, and generally a disarray of sorts in how you run that business. So let's look at the ownership. So the ownership is you who has shares. You sit at the global level, you sit at the umbrella level where you own the business. You may not necessarily be the person who runs the business on a day-to-day basis, You may not necessarily be the person who directs the business. You may not sit on the board, but you own the business. At that level of that governance structure, you are the owner, but you are accountable to these other structures, the board, the management, to the staff. You are accountable to them. Let's look at the director. So a director is someone who's been appointed to come in and give direction, just as the word says. A director. So you're directing the company, the entity. You might have ownership of the business, or you might not have ownership of the business. You might be a working director, or you might not be a working director. So what I mean here is, if you are just a director who's been appointed by the shareholders to represent their interests on the board, you could have two levels. You could be the executive and the non-executive, where the executive is you, who is involved in the day-to-day of the running of the business, or the non-executive, where you only come in on specific appointments to sit as a board, and you decide the general direction of this business. Remember, your role as director is to represent the interests of the shareholders at all time, all through your mandate as a director. You are calling, your beckoning call at the back of your mind should always be, my role here is to represent the interests of the directors. So there's the executive and there's the non-executive, as I've explained. Of course, you who is running your small SME may not have time, resource, and the bandwidth to have either executive or non-executive. So you're basically a working executive. You own the business, you're the director, so you're working, you're delivering service, but you are also directing the business on which direction to go, and you're eventually reaping benefits in terms of dividends at the end of the year. So that is the formal governance. That is a very formal structure where you have gone in, you've registered the business, you've gotten the certificate of incorporation, you've proceeded. Nowadays, the BRS, the e-citizen, will give you a CR12. This CR12 is basically a document that will show you who is the shareholder, who is the director, and what does the shareholder own. If there are more than one, what is each shareholder's stake in the business? One might have 10%, one might have 90%, so whatever the stake is. So that level of governance is very formal. It will also show you the director. It will indicate there that Austin is a director, but Austin is not a shareholder. It's very possible. So that's a very formal governance board. And it comes in purely because you are trying to loop in and to attract a pool of experts to help you formally govern your board. Now, there's also advisory boards. They're very informal. What you do then is you have people who you've enlisted for guidance. They could have expertise in various areas. They could be industry, experts in whatever they do. And what you have done is we've enlisted them, and mostly this happens in non-commercial entities. Let's talk about NGOs, for instance, or limited by guarantee organizations. What happens is you incorporate an advisory board which sits at a lower level, a bit technically, from the ownership, because this board has no ownership whatsoever of the business. They have basically been invited by the owners to come and advise. Now, what's the difference? Look, remember, in the formal governance boards, the director could be an owner. But at this level of advisory, the owner could sit in just to hear what the people he has invited as an advisory board have to say. I hope that exhausts it because we don't have much time, but we'll go on. Clement, let's move to the next slide. So then, having looked at those structures, and I based them very broadly for the sake of discussion, what is the role of governance in decision making? Because what we've been discussing, the advisory and the formal uh, board, where we have directors and all that, what we've been discussing is the governance of an entity, the governance of your SME. But then what is its role? What role does it play in ensuring that you make an informed and an effective decision for the growth of your business? So number one, we're looking at structured decision-making process. Why and what does this mean? Remember, as you, as the owner of the business, sit on that umbrella or on that high seat over there as the owner, eventually, if this business is to grow beyond you, which is our dream as entrepreneurs, we want our businesses to outlive us. You want a very structured decision-making process that when you pass this business down to your son, your daughter, you want it to have had a very stable mode of making decisions that nothing really disrupts its day-to-day running. So when you establish this formal governance structure, for instance, a limited by share company where you have the board appointed and you've done a mix of the executive and the non-executive. Remember, I said the executive is the working director. The non-executive is the director who shows up once a quarter to approve accounts, to approve decisions, to guide, to give guidance on way forward for the next quarter. So you've done a mix of the two. And the reason why you've done a mix of the two is because you want to have a balanced decision-making process. You want the internal to have a say in how decisions affecting the company are made. And you also want the external, someone who sits out there, just looking into the company. They're able to see, okay, here we are not going to the right direction. How about this, we switch course? How about we shift and try this? So you want both to have a discussion and agree, okay, this is the best way forward. So a structured decision-making process, as opposed to waking up in the morning and deciding, today I'm not opening this business. Or waking up in the morning and saying, I had 2 employees. I don't think they make sense. You guys, you're fired, go home. So you want a structured decision-making process. You want the board to be able to sit, discuss, assess the pros and cons of each decision, and pick one that serves the company for its sustainable development and growth. Risk assessment and mitigation. This means basically you have an accountant or an economist or a finance person in your board. This finance person will be able to tell you, boss, you have not filed your returns. Both Kenya Revenue Authority returns, that's the tax returns, and the company's registry returns. So you are running a risk of being fined, being shut down by government, being considered non-compliant by your clients. So the risk assessment and mitigation is basically a role that the board plays. And it's played well when this role is in conjunction with the internal management. Strategic planning and foresight. Now, these people that you're inviting in, again, should be people of, for lack of a better word, wisdom. You just can't invite a high school leaver to sit on your business board, and not in a bad way, because you want someone who has a bit of life experience, professional experience, social understanding, that they will come in and tell you, now, if you are selling bananas, the bananas need to be ripe. And if they don't need to be ripe, then you should have a target market who want unripe bananas. That if you're delivering a legal service to someone, this service ought to have the A to Z. So the planning of it, how are you going to deliver it? If it's the business, what time will it be open? How do we foresee this business in the next 2 years, in the next 3 years, in the next 4 years? So that strategic planning is, or can only come from someone who's been, in a way, experienced, has either gone through these procedures themselves, or is currently running an organization somewhere else, and they're able to tell you, where I am, we've been doing this and it's not working. So I don't think you should try it. Or where I am, this is working, but you can tweak it this way for it to suit your organization. Accountability and transparency, which is what we all struggle with. We all struggle with it. SMEs, accountability and transparency. You have received a payment, 100,000 shillings. You know your cost of sale is 60,000 shillings. So ideally, this 60,000 should not be touched. Then the 40,000 that's left is supposed to cater for every other expense. Now you have tax that you need to pay, whether employee, whether income, whether whatever. And you have yourself to pay as either a salary, a dividend. Your level of accountability at that point, and based on your personal life and experience, might differ if you have no one else to hold you accountable. If you have this board to tell you, we received gross sales of 10 million this year, we've paid income tax of this much, VAT of this much, we've paid our staff, we've paid our cost of sales, we've put it aside, and this is what is left. If you have no one who will hold you to account on those levels, then you're bound to dip your hands and utilize business funds for other things. If you don't have multiple layers of approval, that money comes in, but the going out is a bit more structured, so that no one person can make a decision on how funds are utilized without the concurrence of the other, then you're bound to find yourself in an accountability and transparency issue. That is part of the work that the boards do. That is part of the work that corporate governance does. So corporate governance, again, I'll keep repeating this, is the entire global mechanism through which we manage such small nitty-gritties in the day-to-day running of the business. Clement, let's move on to the next slide. So what are the benefits then? So you remember, you've received that 10 million shillings and you put away into each basket whatever is deserved. It's the tax, you've paid it. Cost of sale, you've done it. Your employees are happy. What are you left with? You might end up, after that 10 million shillings, you only have 100,000 shillings left. And you ask yourself, how? I made a whole 10 million shillings. Where is the money? But you know what it has done? And remember, part of the cost you have to pay is yourself. You have to pay yourself. And schools of thought have come up where it said, as an SME owner, pay yourself first. Pay yourself first so that you're not sharing from an empty cup. You're not delivering from an empty cup. You're not leading from an empty cup. Pay yourself first, because then it all goes into the little bits of funds that you'll come to the end and account for and say that out of this 10 million, I've spent 9.9. I only have 100,000 shillings left, but my life didn't stop. I paid myself a salary. My household is okay, it's happy. There's food. There's water in my house. I'm not going back home to an empty house. I'm not going back to a cockroach-ridden house. You're living a socially acceptable lifestyle that you're not forced to keep dipping into your business funds for you to survive and sustain yourself. So pay yourself a salary. At the end of it, what it does is it gives you a very clear financial picture of your business because you've avoided going in to dip your hands and get money out every time your personal life has a need for it. You need to travel up country, you dip into the business funds. You need to fly out, you dip into the business funds. So basically, it gives you improved financial performance. And what does this improved financial performance do? It attracts investment. Now, remember I said, if you survive year 3, year 5, year 7, there's something about those particular years. Year 3, year 5, year 7. And this is from my experience. It's not written anywhere. From my experience of managing SMEs, guiding SMEs, giving legal advisory, if it survives year 3, year 5, then year 7, for sure, there's every bit of hope and chance that this SME will survive into the long term sustainably. So what does that do? Because you set in proper corporate governance structure on the financial side, that there is multiple layers of approvals for financial spending, then you are able to prepare your accounts because you have no shame. You have nothing to hide. You're like, okay, I got in 10, I've spent 9.9. This is how I've spent it. There's only 100,000 which can go into dividend. You decide, am I going to plow this money back into the business or I'm going to pay my shareholders? And you tell your shareholders, this 100,000 is what we made for the year 2024. So you decide, do we pay ourselves a dividend in December or whenever the financial year ends? Or are we taking this 100,000 and investing into a bigger server and investing into another vehicle and investing into another branch somewhere else? So that improved financial performance, it gives you a bit of room to make very long-term sustainable decisions. And what that does is attraction of investment, because an investor will not come into a house that is in shambles. One of the things investment analysts will ask you, give us your 3-year financial records. Are they audited? Are they certified? How do they look? Again, this goes back to who is your auditor? Are they a credible audit firm? Such that that investor who walks in and asks you, give me your 3-year financial records. Again, you have no, you're not withheld in figuring out, well, do I really share this account or not? You've done it, right? You have the accounts. You know your auditor is accredited. And you're like, all right, yeah, they are. You've only made, the last 3 consecutive years, you've only made an average of 100,000 in gross or in net income. That net income or that net profit over those 3 years is what is an actual picture of the business. This actual picture, the investor is actually happy to see it and make a decision on it and tell you, well, you're looking for investment of this level. I'm willing to give it to you because I can see there's one growth. Maybe year 1, you are at 100, year 2, you're at 200, year 3, you're at 250. There is growth, however small, however minimal, but there's growth. And then because you did clear books of accounts, it's easy to track every coin where it was spent. And eventually that bears a proper reputation for your business. That even the bank, who is your number 1 creditor, knows, X Limited is handling their business upright, in a clear corporate governance, corporate governance-led manner, so that when you go to that bank and you tell them you need a financial facility, they are not at pains to ask you, so what do you do? You know, when you walk into your bank and they ask you what do you do, and you've been banking with them for the last 4 years, that should raise some alarm, even in your own mind. You're like, okay, so then what have I been doing? How come they don't know me? So that reputation should precede you, that you have run your business well. There's structures that when the bank needs to approve a payment for about $10,000, they have to call multiple people. Could be a payment of 100,000 shillings, and they have to call 2-3 people for that payment to go out. That is you setting up structures, and these structures eventually pay off. And because you have a buildup of funds over the last 3, 4, 5 years, however small, you've made 100,000 net profit every year. In the last 3, 4, 5 years, now you have 500,000. COVID hits. What does that do? It gives you resilience to push through the year because you have a backup. So you have this retained earnings. You have a backup. You can actually power through the year without much disruption. So resilience and adaptability. So those are some of the benefits of corporate governance for SMEs. Let's move on to the next slide, Clement. Now, challenges and considerations. So for fear of losing control, especially for family-owned businesses, cost and time investment, finding the right board members. These are part of the challenges that you have to consider as a business. Now let's look at family-owned businesses. We all have that small kiosk, maybe it was set up by our grandfather, our grandmother, or our parents, or our brother and sister. And that small business has been running, say, for the last 10 years. Doesn't make much money, but it's sustaining you guys as a household. Could be you and your wife and your husband. You have this small business. It might not be making a lot of money, but it's sustaining you guys. Now, if you go back to the bank and they tell you, we want to see your financial statements. Now you go back to your auditor, they tell you, for us to make your financial statements, we need to see your bank statements for the last 3 years. What is happening is you're being forced to disclose a very intimate part of your life as a business owner to a third party and even to a fourth party. And eventually, perhaps you're scared, if I disclose this, I might lose this business. You're scared that if I disclose this, I might not have enough control over this business as I have had over the last 10 years. So there's that fear of losing control. There's the cost and time investment. Corporate governance demands a lot of your time as a business owner. It will demand a little bit of your life every single day. Because every single day, you'll have to account on how time was spent. It may not be for you or at your personal level, but for your staff. Because if they don't account for it, then for sure you're losing money. If you can't account for the time that your staff have, the 8 to 5, or whatever periods they work, then for sure you're losing money. If you can't see tangible results out of it, for sure you're losing money. The other challenge is finding the right board members. It is a very live challenge. Finding right board members has been a struggle, not just for SMEs, even for the big corporates. Why? Because number one, based on what you're looking for, if you're looking for a board member you'll control, that is a challenge. Number two, you might have or get the right board member who is independent, sober, outspoken, and will give it to you upfront as it is, say it as it is without withholding. But you, where you sit, you're like, okay, this is too much. I don't want this. So finding the right board members that click and gel, because that clicking and gelling is very important. It may not be clicking and gelling such that they are always in concurrence with each other's ideas, opinions, but clicking and gelling in terms of having the right attitude and understanding of your business for them to propel it forward. Fair enough. I think those are the challenges and considerations, part of what you should consider as an SME. I know most SMEs, Clement, we can move to the next slide. I know most SMEs will have a challenge in terms of this person I'm bringing in as a director, or this person I'm bringing in as an advisory, as an advisor. And at one point they are conflicting or opposing what I'm proposing. How do I handle them? And let me tell you, in fact, when you have your advisors and your directors at all times trying to steer you from one thing or the other, or opposing each other's opinions, that's the best part. Because then it means you have a very sober board. You have a very sober advisory team. If you have a team that all the time is just saying yes to what you propose as the owner, or yes to what you propose as the manager or the CEO or the director, then sometimes also step back and ask yourself, well, what is this? Am I really in the right path? Because it's not all true that you'll always be right. So you must have conflicting opinion, you must have diverse opinion, you must have the outliers on your advisory team, the people who will stand up and say, no, let's try this other direction this year and see where it goes. Because that creates a challenge, it creates a mental atmosphere where you're all forced to think beyond the ordinary. And that's the only way your business will grow. Now, I wish we had more time, but there are case studies of how successful SMEs have benefited from governance structures. So the impact, again, of right decision making. Remember, as an SME, you are called upon every minute to make a decision. Let's take a kiosk or a small shop, a stall right in the middle of Nairobi, the CBD. This is a stall that sells, let's give an example of what, female attire. Every single day that they open up this store, call it along Kenyatta Avenue, every single day that this shop or this stall is opened is a window for either growth or collapse of this particular stall. Let me give you an example of a window for collapse. You have not paid your business permit. Kanjo comes around. You know how those hooligans behave. And they whip you up along with your wares, throw you into those dirty vehicles they have, your wares in the filthy vehicles, and you're bundled into county council halls, county council courts. A whole week, probably it's a Monday, you've been arrested. A whole week is thrown into disarray. It's on the 25th. You are hoping to make some money on that 25th, probably through the 29th to 30th, so that you are able to pay your rent by the 1st. We know how the court case will go. Probably you'll be given a mention the next day to appear a day after or so. Throughout this period, your business is shut down. Now you've lost a whole 5 days or a whole week, through which you would have made some money, and which money now you would not have, and you are forced to spend extra to pay either for a lawyer or to pay a fine. That is an instance of where simple corporate governance structure was not put into place, was not adhered to, because you thought you could skip a process. Perhaps you didn't know about it, but then that is where we have advisory boards. Again, that is why we have experts in various fields. Talk to an accountant, talk to a lawyer if you think there's something you need to know, or if you feel you just need basic advice. It's cheaper for you to actually have a lawyer on retainer, and here I'll have to beat our own drums as lawyers. It's cheaper for you to have that lawyer on retainer and pay them 10, 20,000 shillings a month. But you know, at any point, you'll call them and ask them, well, I think this nature of business, just advise me. Do I need to get, what kind of permits do I need to get? Do I need to have filed my returns? I want to go into KRA. Could you have your clerk go there and do this for us? Simple, simple things that have the potential of killing your business overnight. Now let's look at a successful SME and how they benefit from governance structures. I know for a fact of a business where the owner has an accountant, has a lawyer, and has an independent third party for advisory basis. She actually calls this person a mentor. And I'll give you facts on how their business have run. I won't mention this business, I'm sure we all know it. For the last 3 years, what she has done is she's put the accountant and the lawyer on retainer. I happen to be that lawyer. She doesn't pay us much. She pays us about 15,000 every month. She pays this 15,000 not because she associates us with problems or she foresees problems. She pays this 15,000 because on a day that she has a simple legal issue coming up, then she doesn't have to go back into her pocket and fork out huge sums of money for a representation. She pays this 15,000 every month because she knows at the end of the year, we will automatically file her returns. We will do the tax, we will do the companies, we will do the renewal of the permits. It will be an automatic renewal for her. It kills all her headaches. And now, because she has automatically had this accountant I think for the last 18 months, and because her books have taken shape, 2 weeks ago, she got an offer for investment. Very randomly. Someone online told her, we like your business, we'd like to invest in it. We invited them into our office a week later. A month ago, in fact, yeah, about a month ago, they gave an offer. They're willing to pump in 10 million shillings into a business that used to generate 100,000 a month in gross sales. But you're telling her, because you've kept your records well, yeah, we're offering it 10 million and we're offering this as patient capital. We're not asking for stake. We're not asking for ownership of the business. We're giving you this 10 million as very patient capital. Patient capital is that capital that is able to wait. They're not asking you to pay for it within a year or 2 years or 3 years. They've told her, we want you to capitalize this 10 million. We will send you a finance expert, capitalize it over the next 36 months, but we want our money back by year 5. Do you know what that's going to do to that business? It's going to blow it up to exponential levels. Because you can imagine a bank will possibly not have picked her out. But because of what she has done, she's put herself out there. She's on social media. She's, she has, I think, an IT or a digital person who does SEO. Something about just putting it out there. I was amazed. I was like, wow. Now, I happen to sit on her advisory board along with the accountant and an expert, marketer. We don't know where this person came from, but she just introduced and said, I think I need to include this person on our advisory board. So we have 3 people, and every month we'll have an hour. I should call in and say, guys, this is what I'm doing. Once a month, she'll just brief us and tell us, today our sales for last month have not been good, but this is where we are. We are looking to blow it up. This is where we are. We are stuck. This is where we are. Please help. So, guys, corporate governance has this potential of opening up your SMEs to various levels, to wherever you want it to get to. And corporate governance starts with us. Just the way you wake up in the morning, take a shower, brush your teeth, dress up well, your shoes are well done, polished. That's individual governance. That's you governing your body. Corporate governance is that for the company. That you make sure that when leaving the house in the morning, you have a bit of, pocket change in case you are stuck out there. You have a bit of savings at the end of the day. That is corporate governance, just on a global level of a corporate or an SME. So asanteni sana. I want to open this up for questions because I know we are almost out of time. Back to you, Clement.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Austin. Now, before we go to Q&A, Austin, I'd like you to emphasize what your client is doing with the retainer. If you can quickly go back to that.
So, in 2022, that was around June of 2022, she was actually alichotwa na Kanjo. She has this small stall in town, and she hadn't renewed her permit. In fact, she was on month 13. She had just crossed a year by a month. She was on month 13, so she's seated pretty in her stall, and Kanjo walks in. And as that story goes, she ends up at city council courts. She quickly calls her mother. Her mother knows me, calls me and tells me my daughter has been arrested. Please assist. So I rush to Kanjo, and I find that she's there because of work permit. And I think it was those days that Kanjo just go around and do msako.
Right.
So we sorted her out. And then out of that, she came back and she told us, I've spent almost 40,000 shillings just sorting this out because she had to pay us. She had to pay a fine. I spent almost 40,000 shillings just sorting this out. But when I extrapolate this 40, I could start you guys off with a retainer of 50 per year. And this 50, you just ensure we are upright. We are upfront with our business dealings. So all we did is do a Q&A, a checklist for her. We prepared a simple checklist. This is what you need to do as a business. This is what you need to have every beginning of the financial year, January for government, and 30th June. This is what you need to do for your own internal financial year, because there's the government financial year and there's your own SME financial year, your own business financial year. The government ends its session on the 30th June. Your year doesn't necessarily need to end on the 30th June. It will end 30th September. It will end 30th March, like Safaricom. So it doesn't necessarily need to align with the government. but you need to be aligned in terms of filing. So this small retainer she gave us was for us to prepare for her checklist and ensure she's aligned. Because she said she doesn't want to ever again be harassed the way she had been harassed by whatever reason, KRA, Kanjo, or whatever. So we did a checklist. We filed all that needed to be filed. We advised her and told her, bring in an accountant, bring in a tax person if necessary. Do you know, last year, because the whole of last year, she's had us on her advisory board, myself, the financial guy, and this marketing person who is purely independent. They just come in for advisory. Last year, her sales doubled.
Wow.
And she told us it's because she has that peace of mind. She knows whatever picture she receives for her financials at the end of the month is a true picture of her business.
Correct.
So the retainer then is something over time now. Of course, we had to take it up slightly because she wanted us to file the annual returns for companies. She wanted us to prepare some labor contracts for our staff. She's hired 2 people so far. So this 15,000 shillings she pays us every month get us for all that. That there's an issue at NHIF. She doesn't need to run there. We have our clerk. He runs there. He sorts her out. There's an issue at KRA. She doesn't need to go there physically. So she has her time focused on her business. That is what corporate governance does.
Cost-effective time management. I am just liking the sound of this. Ladies and gentlemen, I am opening up a Q&A session, but I don't know how to say this. This is an opportunity that you wouldn't want to miss. All under one roof, Ondaba and Partners Advocates. Just imagine, no stress with KRA, no stress with your audits, no stress with Kanjo, no stress. I believe everyone would like a stress-free business. This is what you get from Austin and Daba. Ondaba and Partners Advocates. Austin Attorney, thank you very much for your presentation. We'll allow you to put your contacts in the chat just in case there's anyone who would be wanting to look for you for such kind of services. I know we are way past time. It's already 11 and how many minutes? And 6 minutes. Kindly, if you have question and answer, feel free to open your mic. If you're not in a position to open your mic, you can put it down in the chat. Yes. A comment, if not a question and answer. The floor is open. Well, Austin, it seems like your presentation was quite straightforward. The hammer hit the nail quite on the point, I believe. Austin's contacts are currently in the chat. Please. Usishikwe na Kanjo. Kanjo is stress. KRA is stress. Those are the advantages of having a lawyer at the tabs of your hands. Now, as I close, Austin and I belong to SFA. These are one of the advantages that we give to our clients. Online sessions of informative sessions, just like this. Sometimes we indulge in different kinds of activities other than founders conversation. If I am in correct language, events, I'll be sure to share one that is coming up It will be a good networking one. I believe I have not blocked anyone. If there is no Q&A, I want to say thank you very much for giving us your time. I hope you picked what you can use. And if you didn't pick what you can use, please make sure you make use of this contact. For now, he might give you, I don't know, I won't say free, but if you are in line with no stress, imagine paying a retainer to your lawyer shouldn't hurt you. This guy will cover you back in all instances. And if my business is just making 100,000 and I'm able to make 10 million in the next few, oh my goodness, why not? Thank you, Austin, for that insightful session. And thanks to all of you, our very, very active participants today. We hope you found the conversation on corporate governance valuable for your business. As we wrap up, I'd like to invite you all to join us next week as we continue episode 3, exploring key aspects of business growth in our Founders Conversation series. Finally, if you're not already a member of SME Founders Association, I encourage you to join us. We connect founders to money, markets, and mentors, giving you the tools and connections you need to scale your business. Thank you once again. We look forward to seeing you next week. I have a virtual connect card that I will shortly put on the chat. Stop sharing this. And thank you very much. My virtual connect card on the chat in a few. And there we go. It should come up now. That's the virtual connect card if you would like to join. For simple information, I'm gonna put my website there. The website there is quite simple. That just if you even search SME Founders Association just on Google, you'd be able to find us. We are everywhere. We are digital. We are global. That's us, SMEFoundersAssociation.com. I appreciate you. Thank you very much. Have a terrific Thursday and enjoy the rest of October. Till we meet next week. Thank you and bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Asante sana.
Appreciations, Austin. Appreciations. Thank you.